Flipping homes is a billion-dollar business, and with all the shows and advice out there, pretty much anybody can get in and make a ton of money, right?
I think everybody thinks they can make a ton of money.
Yeah, well, we're joined by Safe Homes Canada's Andy Christie to tell us about the pitfalls and what to watch for, because the bottom line is, Mike, sometimes saving some money will cost you a lot of money.
Exactly.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back with Hitting Home with Mike and Arif.
Welcome to Hitting Home with Mike and Arif. I'm Mike Montague. I'm here with Arif Khan, and we're here with Andy Christie from Safe Homes Canada, and we're talking about inspections and flipping homes today.
Yeah, thanks for joining us back, Andy. Really loved having you on last time. You were always blunt and forthright, and it's fantastic. And one of the things I learned about you, or from you most, was that the inspection is not to talk you out of buying the house, but to make you aware of what you're getting yourself into.
Eyes wide open.
Yeah, thanks for having me back in. It's always a pleasure. And yeah, this whole thing is really about no surprises for buyers. That's really what it's all about if you want to sum it up.
Mm-hmm. So the fact is, you heard our opening really, which is, people wanting to get into the flip market, people wanting to get into the looking for an opportunity to buy something maybe at a discount. Sometimes there's a term that's coined out there. It's called putting lipstick on it, making it prettier and turning around and selling it. And one of the things that we've learned talking with you and from some learned experiences, that that can be a double-edged sword. We want people to have a successful outcome. We want the investors who are getting in the marketplace to have positive results and see this as maybe a cottage industry or supplement their income, or maybe even turning this into their full-time income. But there really are things that we want to educate our viewers to, and that is how to flip a home and how to do it properly.
Well, that's so here's a picture. I'm going to paint a picture.
Okay.
So here's Bob and Susan buy a house, and they're going to do a bunch of work to it, renovate it, refurbish it, however you want to say it, and they hire only qualified contractors. So it's an electrician doing electrical, a plumber doing plumbing, a window person doing the windows. This is not a realistic scenario. This is not how it goes.
They got a friend who does everything?
The process just isn't that formal. We have a lot of people using a lot of different power tools and executing a lot of work that they're not qualified to do. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of a generalization of what I have found as a building inspector, as a full-time inspector, going in at least once a week and inspecting houses that have been refurbished, spruced up to sell.
Yeah, you can fool some of the people, but you're not gonna fool a good home inspector, though.
So again, the point
Right.
is, we don't want to talk people out of this. We don't want to talk people out of this. Maybe it's a retirement plan that people are using, which is, I know I'm pretty handy, and I know I can do a pretty good job at things. That's great, but there's also the legal implication.
Yeah.
There's a legal implication of, and you've brought with you some photos, and in the short period of time that we have with you, we'd love to go through with you some of the things, because
That'll be fun.
we can talk about it all we want, but I think you've got some great examples that
The
you shared
pictures
with
speak
us.
for it.
Yeah.
For sure, and the photos will be fun, and I think, an interesting way to look at it is from my shoes. Mm-hmm. Not to sound too self-engaged, but as an inspector who's gone through these buildings repeatedly and found all kinds of surprises. Pretty much every single building you inspect, you're finding surprises.
Mm-hmm. So we've got on the screen here, we've got the a foundation and a downspout, or a lack of a foundation. I can't see it. Take us through what you got on the screen.
Okay, right away, how do I react? So that's a block wall. So this is a house that was inspected recently, and it was spruced up for sale. It was inspected last week, and you can't see the foundation wall on the outside of the building. So again, I hear a lot of this from realtors and from buyers and from different people. Oh, it's all been renovated. It's all been upgraded. Well, you still have to, even more so, look at it one piece at a time, just like every other inspection.
Yeah.
Follow the process. So when I look at that wall, which you can't see, so you see a brick system going down to grade, to the ground, you can't see the wall, which is a block wall.
So why is that
You're
an
also
issue?
dumping water against the block wall. So I know right away as an inspector that I'm going to be really enthusiastic with my moisture meter, because block is somewhat unforgiving relating to water entry, especially if you dump water against the block.
Yeah.
So when I go inside, I'm not going to be surprised to find water entry. And again, people are sometimes naive about these flip houses, And this is one of the most important
Yeah.
pieces.
So there also isn't the 6 feet or 10 feet of spout that's allowing the water to pull away from the foundation.
That's one part of it. The other part of it is you can't see the outside face of the foundation. So
Right.
if you could see the outside face of that block foundation.
So where the cinder block meets the brick.
Yeah,
is
let's
what
call
you're
it
talking
concrete
about.
block. So,
Yeah.
so where the concrete block is normally exposed, you can't see it there because the ground has been brought up a little too high, so to speak. What you would normally see at a house this age and size, you would see perhaps half a dozen normal settlement/stress cracks at the outside face of the foundation. And then I would look at those and assess whether I think they need to be sealed or not.
Yeah. So what would be an existing issue or potential future issue having like the fill that high that it's actually buried the foundation and you've got water that's meeting with the brick there? What are they in,
Well,
in
it's
for
all
here?
it's all about water entry and the worsening of cracks. So if you're dumping water down against the block wall and then there is a crack there, the water's going to go in, and B, the crack may get worse.
Right,
over
so
time.
we're going to
Yeah.
go to the next shot here because we could camp out all day on this one. What have we got here?
Simply open joints at a basement windowsill. So again, block walls being somewhat unforgiving, you have to do the little things right. Do you have to dig around the house? Normally, no. But water goes in because we let it go in. So that's a perfect example of an access point for water.
And then
What's
if
a
you got
proper remedy?
freeze thaw.
Caulking. That's just a caulk
Just
the
caulking.
joints kind of deal.
So
Which
that's
anyone can
that's
do.
a $5 fix. Let's go to the next one here.
Obviously, open mortar joint at I believe
This
that's
is
a
the
basement
windowsill.
windowsill, or it
Yeah.
might be a higher level windowsill, it doesn't matter. The bottom line, it's part of the work you need to do to eliminate obvious entry points for water. It's all about keeping it simple. Again, warning the buyer what might happen at spring thaw. Water might come in because we see everything hasn't been done perfectly up to
Yeah.
this point.
So you'll see this on brand new homes. You'll see this on subdivision home, volume build homes. You'll see this on some
Yes.
of the older homes as well. Again, this is not a reason not to buy a house.
It shows that the focus has been making the kitchen pretty and the bathroom pretty, not looking at the building envelope
The
and water
cosmetics
control,
are pretty.
and thinking about structure and water entry.
And,
right?
and
So-
water entry, in warmer climes, water entry is what it is. In colder climes, there's an added element. I mean, last
Okay.
night here in Barrie, the temperature dropped to minus 26 degrees. It was chilly. I know someone who was locked out of their car this morning I had to pick up. But
Absolutely.
you get freezing and thawing, water expands and contracts. When it freezes, it expands. So you get water into those cracks, freezes, expands, makes the crack bigger. Each time that happens, the crack gets bigger, bigger, bigger. These are the long-term things I think you're dealing with.
Very long term. So think of time-lapse photography. So I respect the physics of what you're talking about, but it's a slow thing. It's really more about the water going in the basement.
We got to go to
Right.
break.
Okay.
But when we come back, Andy, you said a word a couple seconds ago or a couple minutes ago that really caught my attention, and the word was naivety. When we come back from the break, I want you to talk to our audience about just essentially not being naive.
The root of it. Yep.
Absolutely.
Good.
We'll be right back
Excellent.
with Hitting Home with Andy Christie from Safe Homes Canada on Hitting Home with Mike and Arif. Welcome back to Hitting Home with Mike and Arif. We are joined by Andy Christie, owner of Safe Homes Canada. You're a home inspector. Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
And we're talking about basically the word that you used earlier, naivety. And I think the point is we got to be really careful. We don't want people not to get into the home renovation business. We don't want people to not get into the investment business and flipping homes, but we want our sellers and our buyers to be aware and what to look for.
You're buying a house that's been refurbished / renovated, whatever you want to call it, spruced up. You have to go through the exact same process of inspection as if you were buying a century home that hasn't been touched, because you don't know the quality of the work that's been executed, and there are always surprises.
Let's turn this around a little bit. You're the investor, and you're buying a home, and you're going to buy it, and you're going to do the renovation, and you're going to spruce it up, and you're going to turn
Yeah.
around and sell it. Now let's look at
Right.
it from that
Start with a
perspective.
qualified building inspection. Understand the process of the inspector, make sure it's completely thorough, comprehensive, everything gets checked. That's your starting point. After that, if you need design help, get design help. After that, get the right people in place, qualified people. It has to be qualified people, always.
Okay, so we're looking at some photos. We're talking about predominantly water entry, and the thing that you mentioned earlier before the break was, what are these photos are showing us? The photos were showing us that more attention was spent on sprucing up the bathroom and the kitchen than it was on the actual structural integrity of the house.
True statement.
We got a couple more coming in. Let's take a look at these now. We were talking about block foundation.
It's called
and water.
efflorescence. Let's call it white fuzzy powder stuff inside face of a block wall. It's moisture. It's evidence of moisture traveling into and through the block.
What's the downside of this?
Well, we already know, we already knew we were probably going to find moisture infiltration or evidence of moisture infiltration when we went in the house, and there's part of the evidence.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do the simple things outside and stop the water from going in.
Yeah.
All right,
Which could lead to things like mold, I suppose.
Start with, eventually,
Yeah.
depending on the situation. The bottom line is keep it simple. Okay, you hire an inspector to do an inspection, the house has been renovated, oh, the roof's new, oh, it's all good. Yeah, you still have to get on a ladder. It doesn't matter if it's winter or not. Get up and move the snow off the roof, check the shingles.
Next one.
Nice looking shingles. That shows a flashing. There's a metal junction flashing at the bottom of that window. So they roofed it. Whoever did it left the old kind of crummy flashing in place and didn't fasten it properly to the roof surface. So there's work required there.
How much time would it have taken, and how much would it have cost to do it right?
Not a lot more.
Okay, next one,
So-
Steve.
That just shows some parging. Again, it's an obvious entry point for water at a basement windowsill. It's blocked, so it's a bit unforgiving. Water's going to go under that parging as the snow melts. And yeah, the moisture meter showed slightly elevated moisture readings at that location.
Can you fix this in the winter?
Yeah, you can try on a warmer day, and then really it's more about you can try to keep the snow out of the sill or out of the window well for now. It's really more of a warm weather project, but you can make
Address it in the spring.
For
that
sure.
Kind of thing. All
For
right,
sure.
Steve,
Yeah.
what do you got?
That's a house that was refurbished, so we moved on to a different house, not that it matters. That's a little bit of a bulge or the inside face of a foundation wall that's not quite planar. So it looks like it has a bulge to it. There's a bit of horizontal cracking, which really freaks everybody out. I try not to get too excited about it. It's not going to change, so you coach buyers, it's not going to change typically, as long as you get the water away from the building on top of the ground, seal the skin of the building, do the simple things, and that, I assess that as a stable wall that's got a bit of a flaw to it.
Okay, excellent.
It's got paint on it, looks pretty. That's just a safety issue. So again, this house has been refurbished, but nobody put a lock on that's a 100 amp fused disconnect with no lock. So anybody can just open that. It's kid height, a tall kid, but they can open that, stick their finger in, and I don't know, under some circumstances, possibly die. So not a good situation.
No.
All right.
That's worth doing the inspection for right there, that one safety piece. Okay, galvanized pipe at the top going up into a pretty, just tiled, lovely bathroom. So they put new PEX piping at the underside of the floor assembly, a new bathroom in above. It would have been a great opportunity to pull the galvanized pipe out. The insurance company's probably going to demand that gets removed now. And now it's a big job. It would have been an easy job.
Let's
before,
leave the
right?
photos for a second and let's talk about that one, Andy.
Absolute
And-
insanity.
and
You just
Mike-
can't get your head around it, right?
Mike, you're a realtor.
Yeah, well, galvanized. We see it all the time in older properties, and we see that matching of galvanized to newer plumbing and that. But a lot of people don't understand what is galvanized.
It's just
why is it an issue?
The bottom line with galvanized, it's a metallic type of pipe, and there are different views on what happens inside and whether it can contaminate water, because it's the water supply we're talking about. The bottom line is insurance companies, many insurance companies associate, or they all associate it with age and possible failure. Some insurance companies require that you remove the
Yes.
galvanized pipe. That's big, especially after you finish the bathroom. Now, it's a big expense.
So that would be the same as taking knob and tube and putting a junction box and running copper
Yeah.
from that.
Yeah, and putting
From
new
the same
receptacles
era.
upstairs on ungrounded knob and tube wiring.
Yeah.
Makes
So
no sense.
similar concept.
So here's the thing, though. You've got someone who basically took a home, did some renovations, made it look pretty to go and sell it, and you're saying here that this could have been a simple fix while they had the walls open, while they were doing the plumbing. They could have just pulled that extra galvanized and
Some
run
days,
it properly.
yeah, some days it is to laugh. You just
Yeah.
can't believe it. You can't get your head around why people do what they do.
No,
Human
and-
nature stuff,
Yeah,
right?
and
So,
it should be noted from
ridiculously irresponsible and impractical. Now, I mean, if the buyer wanted to push the issue, they could say, "Hey, can you finish the job?"
So, Mike, you're the
Depending
realtor,
on
though.
Exactly.
You're the
You know.
realtor. So
Yeah.
you've gone in, and you're looking at this as an opportunity to take a new client through to buy this home, and
so
you've now
representing
seen
the
this.
buyer. Yeah.
Whoever you're representing,
Yeah.
I mean, you're representing the seller. What kind of advice are you giving them to say, hey, listen, you know what, you really actually did yourself a disservice by shortcutting or I don't want to say cheaping out, but not spending the extra couple dollars to. What could this be costing people on the outside?
Well, it's gonna
if
cost,
it's found out
because-
that this is done wrong.
And
Legally-
nine times out of 10, a buyer's going to have a home inspector come through. And if I'm the agent representing that buyer, I'm going to insist that they have a home inspection done with a good, qualified, reputable home inspector. And I emphasize those words, qualified and reputable, because there's many out there who aren't. But
Not
ask
thorough.
around. They're just not thorough. And it's not about finding all the little things that you can nickel and dime away. You want to focus on the main things, and you've hit on some of them. It's structure, it's roof, it's HVAC systems. And I encourage the seller, do these things before you list, because it's going to come back to you, and it's going to end up negotiating. Whatever you think you're saving, you're going to end up giving away anyways, because
Well, you
it's going
saved
to be
yourself
negotiated back.
$1,000, but it's going to cause any savvy buyer is going to see
Yeah.
that they're going to have to go and tear the whole thing out
Well,
again, or whatever it might be.
The other side of that may be the child does go down and electrocutes himself in the basement. Now you're set up as the seller for a big lawsuit there. So you want to cover yourself by make sure you're selling a safe home that is, it's meeting everything that you were selling it to be, and not that you're hiding anything.
And people think that sounds dramatic. It's not
No.
over dramatic. It's real. And these things
it's real.
happen. People do get electrocuted, and people
Yes.
do fall down the stairs and break their
Yeah.
neck. It's real stuff.
Yeah. If
You
it's
know?
if it's
not
something that can be proven that you knew of and you ignored and there was negligence involved, it's going to come back to you.
All right,
And
so
then the advice for the buyer, again, get in there and inspect that home. And not everything is a deal breaker. It could be just telling you where you need to get.
Almost
We're-
nothing's
we're-
a deal breaker, right?
We got to go to break. I know this gets lively. We can keep on going. We got 9 more minutes when we come back to talk about more. Let's talk about some more real life scenarios. We're just going to go to a quick break, and we'll be right back with Andy Christie, Safe Homes Canada.
And we're back with Hitting Home with Mike and Arif and Andy, and we're talking, we went through some interesting pictures, and we kind of summarized in that last segment about the importance for the seller and, of course, for the buyer of having an inspector involved and about preparing that home for sale properly. Anything you want to add to that?
I can't believe we actually have to try to convince people this is a necessary process. So you're buying, it's all been refurbished, it's all been updated, it's all going to go great. Touch wood when you say that, right?
Yeah.
That's these photos we're looking at. So every house that I've ever inspected that's been refurbished, there are a plethora of things not done correctly. It's very rare to find that house where everything's been done pro, super pro. It's not real.
I think it's important. You were saying those 8, 10 photos that we just looked at, those are all from one home.
Yeah, I think we might have mixed a couple of photos from another house, but it's both similar situations.
And you probably didn't
older-
have to go back very far in your archives either.
Last week. They're
see
both
this?
from last week,
Exactly.
right? 2 houses in 1 week, both with a plethora of, and it's not like deal-breaking things. I mean, there aren't very many deal-breaking things because there's a solution to everything.
But you want to know what the issues are and whether they're fixable.
So many issues that people, they need guidance on how to
They do.
fix them too, especially foundation stuff, because you normally don't have to dig.
No.
So everybody's like, I got a buddy with a backhoe. No, you don't need that. You don't need the backhoe.
Everybody who knows somebody who
Very
knows
rare.
everything.
Do you know
but-
what? Let me break into this just a little bit here, because normally we're trying to coach our buyers through what to look for in an inspection. Actually, this show for me is more about, you want to get in and be a flipper, you want to be a renovator, you want to do this on your weekends or evenings as part of your retirement program. Maybe you want to retire from work and just flip homes. This is really important stuff. Don't cut the corners. Like, if you want to have success as an investor, as a flipper yourself, this is the show that I want people to be paying attention to.
You're not a plumber, don't do plumbing. Really. You
Leave it
think
to
a
the
plumber would
experts.
leave that galvanized pipe up in the walls? No. A plumber is going to just remove, he's not going to do that.
And then the buyer's inspector is going to find it, and you're going to have a hard time selling your house.
That's somebody who's not a plumber that did that work. Guaranteed.
Let's look at a few
right?
more examples of fine craftsmanship here.
That's just a nice looking block foundation wall. We got some good news there. Yay, we can see a really good looking
As
thing.
opposed
were
to the
done
brick
properly.
going straight to the grade.
Correct.
And what are we looking at there? That's the outside tap, and that's a bit of patchwork around it.
Yeah, it's nothing significant, Mike. I think
Bottom
it's just
line is, though, if there was a
little bit
crack
of
in
paint.
there, they patched it, the water's not getting entry.
most cracks you don't need to seal.
Next
Most
one.
cracks you don't need to dig down and seal. Okay, so this was found by going all the way into the attic, which every inspector should do. That's a little pile of back guano, so bad
In the midst of
droppings,
all the insulation,
which
that's
is
a little
toxic
dark.
stuff. If it's large quantities, it's a big money piece. Small quantity, no big deal. Also, the insulation has been disturbed by mice, just like pretty much every other attic in the world.
Find the access egress points, block them up, and make sure they're not
Yeah,
getting in.
that back guano may relate to that open flashing that we looked at earlier. Right?
Okay.
They're going in somewhere. More of the same, clean looking roof sheathing. So it's just, the most important thing here, the house is old enough where it could, or was old enough where it could have had vermiculite, which may or may not contain asbestos, under the newer insulation. So it's important for an inspector to get in there, dig test holes,
Dig down.
make sure there's no vermiculite under the newer insulation.
And if the bats are able to get in there, so are the mice. Mice don't just stay on the ground, they go up
Mice.
into the attic where the warmth is.
Mice get
Yeah,
everywhere.
Mike, you're right. Almost every house has mice.
And
Just
that's
the way it
new
is.
homes,
Yeah.
that's old homes, that's
They're just,
every home. Mice
they're
are gonna-
incredible creatures at
Yeah.
getting inside.
The last
attic
one we got
spaces.
here.
Small hole, size
Just
of your thumb.
informal plumbing again. The plumber was away. Somebody did their own plumbing. Really not excellent
Informal
work.
plumbing, but you can see
Yeah.
actually that the two pieces are connected. There's some, it looks like some electrical tape holding the plumbing together where the clamps are, and actually the two pipes don't actually align, so they seem to be encouraged to meet.
There you
Looks
go.
like it's from the Red Green Show.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, I really want to spend the last couple minutes that we have on advice for people who want to turn this into a profession, and here are some examples of what not to do.
Yeah, great examples. Again, it starts with having a qualified inspector assess every single thing you need to do at the house. That's what an inspector should be doing. So a lot of inspectors aren't thorough enough. It's taking representative number of windows or testing. That doesn't work. You got to test every window.
So maybe
You know?
we're actually at a crossroads. A realtor or a homestager may say, hey, you know what, the best way to get some money before your resale is put a fresh coat of paint and to do some of these cosmetic things. At the same time, right, if
You want to deal with things that are going to be more costly too. And
you might be putting a couple extra dollars in, but you're going to have a greater return on your investment.
for sure. Now,
Start with knowing everything about the house, and then
So-
you can make intelligent, informed decisions.
yeah.
Right?
Now, I've recommended a number of times to people, and now tell me how often you've had the seller call you in to do an inspection before they put the sign on the lawn. Does that happen often?
It's something that's fairly common. Again, it
I
goes
think that's a great thing to do. Have the inspection report there, and if they want to call you back in to go through
I'm going
as
to
a
counter
buyer,
that.
Boy, we could argue about that one for
Yeah,
a long
I'm
time.
gonna
Yeah,
counter
it
that
sounds like a
because
biased report.
If I'm the buyer,
Yeah.
I'm going to go, why do I want to trust your seller's report?
it's not about trusting the report. It's about finding those things that are issues that the other inspection
Yeah, but
afterwards
what if
is
it's
going
not
to
a thorough
reveal.
inspector? So
Well,
this happens all the time.
If I'm calling
We
you
could
in,
do a whole show on that.
if I call you in before I sell my house, you're going to point out the things that are going to come up in the inspection when the buyer comes in.
Yeah,
But not
I-
everyone's going to do that.
and
I
That's the
agree with
problem.
that, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to put your report on my table that says,
Oh no,
see, I've already had
no,
an
you're not
inspection,
going
you don't need
to
one."
rely on someone else's report. You want your own report
Okay,
done.
so I'm okay
Yeah.
with that, absolutely. I want to
Oh,
know.
I see what you mean.
what's
You'll
it
leave,
gonna take
you'll
for me
leave
to
it
sell
out
my
there
home?
just for the purposes of showing this is what was revealed and this is what we fixed.
So here's the
And now
reality.
you
The
can see it.
reality is I've been living in my home 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and I've gotten used to living with the way it is.
Yeah.
I want a
You
fresh
become
set of
blind to
eyes to
those
come
things.
in and say,
Yeah.
hey, your house isn't as special as you think it is. Here's the report that I've just found these 20 things.
You don't
Yeah.
notice your own dog growing, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't notice stuff.
Yeah.
Just bring in a qualified person. You're going to do a big reno? Yeah, why not? Bring in a qualified person to assess how to do it, exactly what should be done in a practical way, on a practical level.
And as the seller, I get to choose from the laundry list of things that you've presented, which ones I'm going to address, which ones I'm not, but at least I shouldn't be surprised when I get an offer that's slightly less than what I had asked or listed for. Right?
Exactly, and you don't have to make the house perfect, but you start with the safety stuff,
Yeah.
and then the aesthetic stuff, and just keep it simple, But having qualified people, whether it's an inspector or a contractor.
Do you have any examples? We've just got a minute. Do you have any examples that you want to talk about basically a renovation that went bad and it essentially cost the seller? They weren't able to sell it, or they had to go back in and redo?
A million stories. So slight exaggeration, but the one that just popped to mind was the Century Home in King Township 20 years ago, where the guy decided he was going to dig lower and make it a basement when it was a crawl space, and then all the foundations were falling into this hole that he had created, and then he put up a bunch of boards and pieces of steel, and I brought my son, it was a Saturday, and then I said, son, you need to get out of this area immediately, so I hustled him out of the building. It was, the building was literally collapsing. It was a
Imploding.
140-year-old building, and
Wow.
ish.
A stone
And,
foundation.
yeah, the guy's gonna do it himself and create a basement. That was exciting.
We are out of time completely. I mean, it's always a pleasure.
went
having
by
you,
fast,
and that
always
went by
does,
so
Andy.
fast. But we've got another
My
show
pleasure.
lined up with you, and we're going to have you back in the show real soon. We're going to be talking about a new phenomenon, which is about the guaranteed inspection result, and I can't
Oh,
wait to have you
nice.
back to talk about that, Andy.
Look forward to it.
Once again,
Thank
thanks
you.
for being here. If you've got questions or advice
Thanks.
or comments that you want to provide us, Mike, take us out of here.
Take us out of here. You can reach us at hittinghome@gmail.ca, I believe is our email address. And also, you can visit us at hittinghome.ca, or you can visit our Facebook page. We have our podcast out there. You can go to the Rogers TV Barrie page, and you can see the archive of our shows there. I would suggest go on and Google Hitting Home with Mike and Arif, and it'll take you everywhere you need to go. Thanks.